Hello everyone and welcome to chapter 48 of this Flutter course. In previous chapters we've been working with creating an IPA file and sending it to Apple. And in this chapter we're going to make sure that we're releasing that IPA file, meaning that we're going to tell Apple that, hey, we're ready with this IPA file and we want you to review this file for us. And the review process for Apple and Google are a little bit different in that, for instance, with Apple, sometimes there's an actual user looking at your application. And sometimes if you, for instance, request a fast review from Apple, they may not even look at it and they may just say, okay, it just works. It doesn't crash. And then it just goes through. And for Google, it could also be a completely different process. But we're right now in this chapter, we're going to focus on how iOS app submission basically works. Okay. So when you send an IPA file like we've done to Apple, it will be available in a place called TestFlight. So let me bring our web browser to the screen and let's go and see if we can actually bring the views as we had before. So let's see App Store Connect. And I've restarted my computer since last time, so I may have to basically log in again. And thank God I didn't actually have to restart the whole process and actually grab my security key in here. So it just allowed me to log in. So let's go to My Awesome Apps in App Store Connect, and then you'll see a tab up here called TestFlight. And TestFlight, as you'll see now, our build then is available in here, and it's ready to be tested basically. So what we need to also do is to go in here in the missing compliance and then tap on this manage, and it says, does your app use encryption? Select yes. And it says export logs require that products containing encryption must be properly authorized. So in here, we could just say yes. And it says export compliance. Does your app qualify for any of the exempts provided in the category? Make sure that your app meets the criteria. Actually, we could go previous and just say no in here because we're not directly using if it is your responsibility to comply with the export regulation, and you should revisit these questions if your encryption exception eligible stay, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, okay. And then we say start internal testing. Okay. So now that compliance error is going to go away. So now that we've done that, you'll see that here in App Store Connect, there is a section called TestFlight. And in here, you have the ability to, for instance, invite third-party testers to your to test your application. And you are also allowed to give access to your application to users who you've invited to App Store Connect. So it is very, very important to understand the difference. One is internal testing, and the other one is like if you want to submit your application to be tested by third parties, like someone who doesn't work for your company, for instance. So in this case, we're just going to use internal testing in this chapter. But just know that TestFlight is on iOS and macOS an application that you can actually download on those operating systems. And you can use TestFlight in order to test your own iOS applications or Mac applications before you submit them to App Store. Okay? So that's for TestFlight. Now that we're talking about all of these, let's just also make sure that we know we have a little bit of a security problem. We haven't really talked about it so much yet, but I built this with, in Swedish you say med flit, and that is like intentionally. Intentionally, I built this into this course so you'll see how the resubmission process also works. So if we bring our code, let's bring our My Notes code in here and have a look at our, I believe was one of our services, Notes service. Oops, Note service is completely, because that was the CROT service. So let's have a look at the service, Cloud Note, and we have CROD, Cloud Storage, Firebase Cloud Storage, it's called. Okay, I'd forgotten the name. And we had this little all field in here, you see. So what this all field at the moment is doing is saying that go get all the notes in the notes collection. So that's doing that. And then from all the notes, remember all the notes, not only your notes, it's taking and creating a cloud note, and then it's filtering them out by who you are. That is a huge security problem because by doing this subscription and getting this stream, you're pretty much reading everyone else's notes as well. What we want, soon we're going to fix that. Don't worry about it. What we want is to not even allow any user to read someone else's notes. Okay. And then we're going to change this implementation of all notes and resubmit our application to Apple. So I didn't want us to submit an app to Apple and then to Google and then have to resubmit it in both platforms because, as I said, I planned this. So I just wanted us to submit something only to one platform and then draw it back and then send it again. But don't worry about this yet. I'm just giving you some preparation of what's to come. So what we need to do now first is to, as the caption at the bottom of the screen indicates, we need to install TestFlight for both iOS, and you also have to install it for your Mac. On the Mac, you can just go to App Store on your Macintosh, so App Store app, and then search for TestFlight. Okay. After you search for TestFlight, you can install it with this install button. I have it installed already on my computer, so I don't see an install button in here. I can just open it. And after you've done that for your Macintosh, you'll also need to install it for your iOS device. And here, I actually have my iPhone, my little iPhone 13 Pro Max here. And I'm mirroring that iPhone here on the screen, as you can see. So what you can see on the screen is actually my iPhone right here. Okay. And TestFlight is an application which is available right here. So this is the TestFlight application on iOS. So at the moment, you can see that I don't have access to My Notes application, but we're going to fix that soon, or My Awesome Notes, as we call it. Okay. So let's go ahead in here and have a look at the next thing we need to talk about, and that's adding a user to TestFlight. So how do I get access to this build that we've submitted so that I can test it with TestFlight? Well, the user that I've used for testing in here, I know that user. It's pixolity.sweden@gmail.com. So what I'm going to do now is to invite that user to test this build. So let's go to internal testing and press the plus button. And in here, I'm just going to say my users. Okay. And then press the create button. And in here, you'll see a plus button, tester 0, and I'm just going to say plus. And in here, I'm just going to use Pixolity Sweden. So I'm just going to say add in here. Okay, and it says one tester has been added to this group. And that's pretty much it. So I don't have to do anything extra there. So what I'm going to do then is going to wait for an email to be sent by App Store Connect to my user, and it's just been sent. I'm going to open it so you can also see it, how it looks like. Here's the email that I just received. So App Store Connect is telling me that, hey, you've now been invited to test this application, and you can just go ahead and do it. So I'm just going to tap on View in TestFlight, and this is just going to work because I already have basically TestFlight installed on my Macintosh. So let me just tap on that, and I can see TestFlight open on a separate screen. I'll bring it to the screen here, and I can accept in basically installing this application. So as the bottom caption indicates, we've already looked at the email. It looked like this, and now we're going to install this application, which is a Flutter application, but we're installing it on a Macintosh, and that's just great. So let's just accept this. And you can see now, I can either say install or done. So I'm just going to say done so you see it. So this is our application here. And I'm just going to press the install button. And this is just going to go to App Store Connect and grab that binary and bring it down. So, and I can just press the open button. And if everything goes well, this is our Flutter application running on this Macintosh, but it is an iOS app. We didn't actually compile this to be running on a Macintosh. So everything is just working as it should. I can even log in here, right? Like that. And then in here, say foo bar bass, log in, and I can see my notes. So it's working as expected. So I'm just going to close the app now. All right. So what we need to do now is to submit this build. We've looked at it. It seems to be working fine. So I'm just going to close TestFlight here and close this email. Let's then go to App Store Connect, and let's go to this App Store section in here. And in this iOS app section here, 1.0 prepare for submission, let's scroll down to the place that it says build. And we need to then say select a build before you submit your app. Okay. Now, remember, Uh, if you don't see this blue button in here, that's because you've probably just submitted your bill to Apple. Apple usually takes up to 30 minutes or sometimes even more to validate your build. So they may not have even appeared in here, especially if it's the first build that you're sending to Apple. It may take a while for them to process it. So you may not see this button simply because there is no valid build yet. But you can check the status of your builds by just going to this TestFlight section and just having a look at the version that you've submitted. And if that build is still processing, it will just say parenthesis processing, and the icon will just be a little bit grayed out. Okay, so don't worry, there's nothing wrong. You just have to wait a little bit. So in here, I'm just going to say select a build before you submit your app, and then say one, that build that I'd submitted. All right, so and then I'm just going to press the save button. So that's for the build. So age rating in App Store Connect. Go to app information and fill in age rating. And I believe we've already done this. So if you've not done that before, please go ahead and take care of that. But I explained this in one of the previous chapters. So you may have to go and edit your age rating if you want to. But if you have followed the chapters chronologically, you should have done this by this point. Okay. We also need to take care of our app privacy. So we need to go to app privacy, as the caption at the bottom of the screen indicates. And here we have to get started by filling out our app privacy. And as you can see in here, if you have an application that collects a lot of data, I don't want to scare you, but you may kind of be in trouble because you will have to inform Apple about all those things, what you're collecting from the user. Okay. So let's in here, let's say, do you or third-party partners collect data from this app? And we should say yes in here, right? Because we are collecting data. And that is the user's, for instance, email address, password, and notes. So let's just say yes. And in here, so data types that meet all of the following criteria are optional to disclosure. The data is not used for tracking. We're not using it for tracking. The data is not used for third party. We're not doing that. Collection of data occurs only in infrequent cases. Okay. So we pretty much are not doing any of those tracking stuff that they're saying in here. So let's go in here and say data collection. Yeah, we're collecting your email address, and that's it. We're not collecting any financial information, location, contacts, user content, photos, audio, gameplay, none of that. Any other user generated contents? Yes. Browsing history? No. Search history? No. User IDs? Screen name, handle, account ID? Yes, we are. Device ID? We're not. Diagnostics, crash data? We're not doing that at the moment. And other data. So yeah, this seems fine. So for now, we can just say identifier to user ID. We also said other user content because we're collecting the user's generated notes, and we're also collecting their email address. So let's just say save in here. Okay, and it says additional setup required. So let's go ahead and fix those. Now in email address, let's go set up email address. So I'm going to click there. And are we using it for third party? No. Developer advertising? No. Analytics? No. Product personalization, customizing what the user sees, such as a list of recommended products. No. App functionality? Yes. That's what we're doing. So press next. And are the email addresses collected from this app linked to the user's identity? Link to the, yes, email address collector. Link to the user's identity. Are there? I mean, this is a little bit of a legal question, so I'm not best placed here to answer this. But I mean, an email isn't necessarily connected to someone's identity as a person, because I can just go create like a private email that no one knows about. So I'm just going to answer no. Tracking email address. Okay, next. Okay. Doesn't seem like, okay. Do you or third-party partners use email addresses for tracking purposes? Nope. Okay. And saved. Okay. So the email address stuff is saved. Now let's go to other user content, which is the user-generated notes. Okay. So indicate how other user content collected from this app is being used. Advertising, no. Analytics, no. Customization, no. And app functionality, of course. So let's then go and say, is user content collected from this app linked to the user's identity? They're linked to the user's email. And since we said email is not linked to the user's identity, I'm just gonna reason to say no in here. Do you or third party partners use other user content for tracking purposes? Nope. Okay, so that part is done as well. Then let's go to identifiers for user ID. So I'm just going to click there. And remember, user ID in here is that UID that Firebase creates. Okay, remember that. So we're using that for app functionality. Okay. Are the user IDs collected from this app linked to the user's identity? User ID? User identity. I would say yes. It is quite obvious. So let's just say yes. Do you or third party partners use user IDs for tracking purposes? No. Nope. All right. So saved. And that's that. Now you've gone through the privacy policy, and this is like the basically what happens is Apple will display this to users when they try to download your application. It is very important that you fill in to the best of your knowledge and ability. This is not the place that you go and fake anything and say try to hide the information that you're collecting from the users. It is in your best interest, in your product's best interest, and in your company's best interest to make sure that you fill these in as best as you can. Okay. Usually in bigger companies, you'd want to probably consult with a lawyer or somebody who's good at making sure you're not missing anything. So in a big company, you usually don't do this on your own. But since we're now assuming that you're like a single entity, even if you're behind an organization like me, but you're a single entity and trying to do this to the best of your ability. Okay. So now what we need to do is also fill in this let's see here, privacy policy. So what this is, as you can see in here, a URL that links to the privacy policy. Privacy policy is required for all apps. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen, I've actually included a little privacy policy for my own website. And I've included that. Let's see if I can log in here. Let's see if I can do it on a separate window so you don't have to be bothered by that. Because I've actually included that. You know what? I will actually do it on a separate screen so you don't have to be bothered by that. And so I will go to, yeah, I'll go to my hosting website and I'll take care of that. And then I'll bring it to the screen so you can actually see it. So let's see if I can go to my hosting in here and then go to my hosting, basically, well, all my files are residing. Excuse me. And I'll bring it in here. So let's have a look at this URL that I provided at the bottom of the screen. You can see Pixology privacy policy. So I'm going to go to there and have a look at this text file, which is right there, privacy policy. So if I type Pixology excuse me, privacy policy, you see that there is a generic privacy policy that I've placed in my website. And you will need to do the same thing. So you'll need to basically grab a privacy policy from somewhere and look at that privacy policy and make sure that it works for you. So what I did is I found a website, and I'm not just going to go advertising here, but you can find free privacy policy written by a very good and smart people, and you can have a look at those, adjust them to make sure that they make sense for you and your company. And for instance, in here, I've just taken a generic privacy policy. Let's see if I can find it here. So I put my company name in there and I've just ensured that it makes sense for my company. And I've just basically put it inside that URL that you can see at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to go in here, App Privacy and App Store Connect, and say Privacy Policy Edit. And in the Privacy Policy URL, I'm just going to say https pixology.se. And then I'm just going to say privacy policy.txt. But for you, this should be something else, okay? And I'm just going to copy that, open it, and make sure that it exists. And then I'm going to press the save button, okay? So after we've done that, we also need to make sure that we've taken care of our categories, the categories to which our application belongs. So let's go to app information as the bottom of the screen indicates and go in here in the category. And the primary category, we're going to say our app belongs to productivity, and then it belongs to utilities, okay? Here. utilities. All right. Then I'm going to save this information. Okay, then what we need to also do before we submit our app for review is that just remember this application is going to be reviewed by an actual human. So this person is literally going to get this information in the queue of their work. They're going to say, oh, an application called My Awesome Notes needs to be reviewed. And then they're going to say, okay, they're going to have some control panel on their screen. I don't know really how it's formed on Apple's side, but they're going to then download this application on various devices automatically, perhaps. And then they're going to open the app and then just be like, how am I supposed to use this app? So it is in your best interest to ensure that you provide all information possible to that person so that they can review your application. So what you need to do then is to go inside app here, prepare for submission in here, app review information, and then under notes, just tell that person what your how your application works and how they need to register. So in here, what we're going to say is you will need a valid email address in order to register. Please follow these steps to register. Then I'm going to say open the register view and register with the email and password of your choosing. You're choosing. Wait for a confirmation email. Wait for a confirmation email from to be sent to your email address. And in the confirmation, click on the link to confirm your email address. Okay, and then step 3 is go back to the app and in the login screen, log in with your email and password. And that's it. So we've done that now. So I'm gonna actually then provide a valid phone number in here. And since I don't want to really share my phone number everywhere on the internet, I'm just going to go on to a separate screen here and write my valid phone number in here. So that's my phone number. Great. And let's then go here. And then I'm gonna press save button as well. And then bring the screen here. Perfect. So now I've saved that information, including my phone number, and everything should be ready at this point. So what you need to do then is to go and grab some popcorn while you're doing this, hopefully, and then you'll just need to say submit for review. And it says the items below need to be okay. We haven't really done the pricing, and then it says an admin must provide information about the app's privacy practices in app privacy section. It seems like we missed some stuff, so let's go to pricing and availability and fix that. This application is going to be free, so I'm just going to say it doesn't cost anything and save that. So that's for pricing. And let's go to app privacy and see if we've actually missed anything. Doesn't seem like it, but what we've forgotten is to actually press the publish button. So let's just publish that. Okay, then we go back in here and then we say submit. That's great. So now your application is submitted to App Store, and a reviewer from the App Store connecting is going to have a look at your application so that they can confirm that it works according to the information that you've provided. And I can see that I actually got an email from Apple that looks like this, and it says the status of your application has changed to waiting for review. So it's not a waiting game. So but before we actually do all of this, whether Apple has had the time to review our application and accept it, or they found some bugs in it and rejected our application, whichever case, we need to draw back this build. And I will show you how in the upcoming chapters, because we have that security bug that I told you about. So for now, we can just be happy that we've gone through this chapter. We've done quite a lot of work, and pat yourself on the back. Just great job. And grab some maybe tea or coffee, and we can start to actually get ready for the next chapter. And I'll tell you actually what we need to talk about in the next chapter, and that is this little problem that we had in the all notes, and we need to fix this before we can go live with Android as well. So now you know what's coming in the upcoming chapters, and I'll see you there.